Welcome to an all-new episode of Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. Today, we welcome former NFL defensive standout Chris Baker. He played his college ball at Hampton University before he signed with the Denver Broncos as an undrafted free agent in 2009. Baker also played for the Miami Dolphins, the Washington Commanders, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Cincinnati Bengals. Baker also has quite a testimony. After he suffered from a serious stroke earlier this year, he underwent surgery to address the issue and has been recovering ever since. We now welcome Mr. Baker to this live stream of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. We bring you the biggest guests, great analysis, and the hottest sports stories in the nation's capital and beyond. And we bring it to you live. Welcome to this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
Good afternoon, good people. Happy Thursday. Welcome into our double header edition of Listen In with KNN, coming to you all live out of Washington, D.C., presented by Fox Sports Radio, 96.9 FM and 1340 AM. With me, your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. A special thank you to all of you who tuned in earlier to our interview with the CEO of Mayweather Promotions, Leonard Ellerbe, Washington, D.C.'s own. We talked about the upcoming fight. We've got Tank taking on Garcia, April 22nd. The action all going down in Las Vegas. So obviously, we're super excited about that. But now switching from the boxing world to the football world. We know the NFL draft is just a couple weeks away. It's that time of year. There's been so much in sports surrounding football. So I decided to bring in someone that knows the game very well and has played it at the top level. I'm so excited to have him on the show. This is just my second time getting a chance to speak with him and talk with him. We had done a show previously on another show, but now I get them all to myself. And we're going to talk lots of football. He is Chris Swaggy Baker, former NFL defensive lineman. And now I'm going to welcome him live right here to Listen In with KNN. Let's welcome on Chris.
What's up? What's up?
What's up? How are you? Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
I'm so excited to have you. Now, I feel like I'm a prophet or something, Chris, because, of course, the day I bring you on is the day we have some of the biggest news in Washington, D.C. I had to put my phone on Do Not Disturb, Chris.
We got 6 billion reasons to be happy right now.
6 billion. Well, someone got 6 billion reasons. But honestly, I mean, it seems like it's a new day in Washington. I'm excited to talk with you about this because obviously you played for the Washington franchise and then Washington Redskins. But let's get into it because, I mean, if you've been on social media, you're probably laughing at all of the stuff that's being said. But if you haven't heard the news by now, Dan and Tanya Snyder are reportedly close to reaching a deal to sell the Commanders. Chris said it, the price tag right now, $6 billion. If you know math, that's a 700% increase from the $750 million that Dan Snyder paid for this franchise back in 1999. It's been 24 long years, I think fans
Right.
would say that they've been. And you actually had a chance, obviously, to play for Dan Snyder as an owner. But let's just get into this, Chris. I mean, we've been talking about this, Chris, for so long, right? It's been so long. Fans are saying, when is the team going to finally be sold? So first, when you hear this news, what was your first thought?
It's like bittersweet, because obviously I didn't have any bad experiences with Dan Snyder or Tanya. You know, they've always been like family towards me, so it's kind of bittersweet. But I understand that changes need to be made. So I know like the fan base will definitely be happy to see that the team is sold, and it's kind of like a new day. You know, hopefully we can get ourselves a new stadium, because our stadium kind of sucks. You know, it sucks. It sucks to like see on Twitter all the time. I think something with like a water pipe had broke out of preseason game.
It was sewage, Chris.
Right.
Ooh,
I was like, what the hell is going on in Washington?
Not what you want. And football tickets aren't cheap, Chris, when they come to see you guys play.
Right. And Washington deserves, you know, a good stadium to come to and watch the game. You know, it'd be great to like see the stadium, you know, live and rocking like it used to be. Like, from my experience, the best time that we had in Washington Stadium was with RJ3 rookie year. I mean, it was it was rocking every game.
Memories. DC was electric.
I just saw on Twitter the other day, like someone was talking about the electric run that RJ3 had against the Vikings when he took off for like 80 yards, and it was like the stadium was going crazy. So I would love to see our stadium back and our fans happy.
Yeah.
You know, half the time you go to the games, like you hear more fans from the other team. You're like, what the hell just happened? Did something good happen for us, or was it the other team?
My gosh, it's embarrassing, Chris. Like, people will come to DC and like, Kelsey, what's going on? We're the Washington fans. And as you said, I think fans are just, I think they're sick and tired, Chris, of being sick and tired, you know, from
and
so many.
Sick and tired of being sick and tired. One, is like the field play has not been the best.
Right.
We definitely got to find some stability at quarterback. That's the best position. That's the most needy position on every NFL team. And we just can't figure out that one guy. You know, I thought Heineke would have been great for another year, because he's not the big name guy that you look for, but he finds a way to win games.
He does, and he did right here in Washington. And I think, you know, he played with his heart on his sleeve, hard, you know, just a hard runner. You know, he did whatever needed to be done. And I
was so pissed last year, like, yo, like, let's just ride it out with him. Like, we've been winning all these games with him, and then with like 1 or 2 games to go, they switch back to Carson. He goes up there and stick it up. I'm like, man, what the hell was going on? Like, why didn't we just stick with Taylor Heineke? Like, just let him ride it out, man. I was
questions
pissed about
that need answers. Questions that need answers, Chris. You know, you took us back to that score spot. That game still hurts a lot of fans. I hope you know that. I mean, this close, Chris, to get into the postseason, they had one job.
One job, man.
One job.
And we went back to the guy who we gave up on. I'm like, bro, just stick with Heineke. Like, what the hell?
But I will say I'm excited for Taylor Heineke in his new position, a new role right down in Atlanta. I hope that obviously works out for him. And Atlanta, you know, you could say has a system for a guy like him. Obviously, we'll have to compete. But I'm just glad to see him back in the league, because what a story he has. I mean, on the couch, taking classes at ODU, then you get the call up, you're in the big leagues. And then, I mean, he got an entire fan base. And as you know, Washington is not an easy place to play, but got the fans on your side and on your back, and was able to lead this franchise, you know, pretty well, I'd say, you know, with his story. Like, he's not the biggest name, but did what had to be done. I mean, he went toe to toe with Tom Brady. Can you ask any more? I mean,
we actually gave Tampa Bay their best game of those playoffs.
There you go. And we saw what they went on to do. Look at you getting the love. I love to see it super early. But going back, you know, to the sell and what's happening with Washington, you touched on so many great things. You know, you talked about the new stadium. Yes, they need a new stadium. But my question to you, Chris, is where would this new stadium be? Are you keeping it in Landover? Do you want to bring them back home to Washington, D.C.? Do you go far out in Virginia, since Virginia is having so much development? As a former player, as a fan of this team, which I'm assuming you obviously still are, where would you like to see
of
this
course.
new stadium?
I always root for Washington, but I guess they can knock down RFK and rebuild it.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll work. I wouldn't mind seeing it in Ashburn, in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
Because it sucks for us as players to live out in Ashburn and practice there in Ashburn, and then have to drive all the way to Maryland. And then after the games, it's like sometimes it can take you 2.5 hours to get home out of traffic.
That traffic. That traffic is, I mean, if you've never been to a game, folks, at FedEx Field, you better learn, you're going to learn patience if you don't have it, because that traffic is the real deal. Like, as Chris said, you're in traffic sometimes for hours leaving those games, so.
Sometimes you just want to get back home after the game and chill with your family, but
yeah.
you're tired after the game, and then you 2.5 hours in traffic. It's like, what the hell just happened?
Like, what's happening? What's going on? But, it's interesting because, as we talk about this, they're giving away the last seats, Chris, at RFK Stadium. I mean, people are actually like, getting these seats, auctioning them off. And as you said, so many great memories. I've had so many former players on the show, talked to a lot of them, obviously, especially since I worked for the Commanders team. And they all say the same thing. I mean, everybody just has very fond memories of RFK. And I am for bringing it back to DC personally. I hear you in Virginia, but Virginia traffic is just bad. Like the DMV, I think Virginia has the worst traffic. You got to know when to travel in Virginia.
But use them toll roads.
And them toll roads. You have like, where's my change? Where's the change? Where's my easy pass? I mean, you just got to know. So I just feel like bring it back to Washington, D.C. D.C. is going through so much growth already. And just think about if all these new people in the city, I think it would just be fun, And then I think D.C. is great too because it's accessible. I know now, like Landover, you can take the train, but that walk, I don't know if you've ever did that walk. That's a walk from the metro station to this thing. You get strong calves after that walk. Like your legs get fire in them. At least, at RFK, I think it's a little bit easier. Parking there, obviously. I know DC can be tricky, though, with parking as well. But still, I just think, I mean, you're the Washington team. You might as well play in Washington, D.C. But going back to the cell, I know you said, you obviously had no issue with Dan. But I know you do a lot of podcasts and shows. You interact with a lot of fans. What do you think this breath, if this sale goes through, what do you think this breath of new air will do for this franchise in terms of, you talked about the games being more away fans. I mean, do you think this is what needed to get fans back to games and supporting this team, just because we'll have hopefully new leadership from the top, and that's what fans have been asking for, they've just been embarrassed, quite frankly, Chris. I mean, they're embarrassed about these allegations that have come out from former employees, the Congressional Oversight Committee, season ticket holders being, chipped, of money. It just seems like there's always bad press around this team. So do you think this is what needed, like, to bring fans back to loving this team? Because I think this is a football town.
Yeah, I think so, and I hope so. As long as the guys are winning, DC will always back the team. But it's just been so much bad news around Dan Snyder and the things that's happened with the team, whether it's taking ticket money or if it's allegations with employees and stuff. It's just always bad stuff. So they don't have nothing good to talk about. But when there was something good to talk about, our fans were amazing. And I always go back to the RG3 rookie year. Like, our stadium was rocking. And even after when Kirk had took over and we won the division in Philadelphia, when we came back and we had clinched our playoffs, when we came back to Ashburn, our whole stadium, our whole parking lot was packed with fans just cheering us on because we made it to the playoffs. Yeah. So I can only imagine if we really become a dominant team again, how crazy the area will be.
My God.
Everyone's excited to see us win, but we just haven't put a winning product on the field consistently.
And we need that. I mean, right now, basketball fans are sad because the Wizards aren't, not even in the playoffs, but they didn't even get to play in, so we need some joy from this. They're obviously so sad about this team not getting into the postseason. Again, they came this close. We almost had a whole NFC East division there. And again, if we go back to the sales to make sure folks are keeping up, remember the Denver Broncos were purchased back in June, and it was then a record price of $4.65 billion by the Walton family. So think Walmart. If you go to Walmart, yes, you're supporting this family. And so this will be a record deal. I mean, again, $6 billion
for a dysfunctional franchise. They want to hurry up and sell.
That's how you know it's Washington, D.C., right? I mean, that's how you know it's Washington, D.C. Some people thought it would be Jeff Bezos. Obviously, right now, he is not in it. We're actually hearing that he decided not to make an offer, at least according to ESPN. But this group that's made the bid is led by Sixers and Devils co-owner Josh Harris. And how great is that?
I heard Magic Johnson was in there too.
Magic Johnson too was a minority. You know how cool it would be? How cool it would be to just look up in the box and see Magic? Like, see Magic Johnson.
I'm coming to a game just to see Magic.
We're coming just to see Magic. And you gotta win when you got someone like Magic. I think that would be great. And then, there's been a lot of conversation, Chris, about diversifying ownership. And, so when you look at this group, Magic being there, I think kind of starts to at least put a needle right in that.
I heard some news about RG3 trying to get some ownership in it too.
Oh, RG. I feel like fans would love it. I mean, anytime they get to see RG. Matter of fact, since we're talking about RG3, shout out to him for being nominated for a sports Emmy. I think he does fantastic work as
He's
an
doing
analyst.
great, man. I love it. Every time I see him, I was like, yo, RG3 is really personable. I didn't know this about him.
He is. I saw the video the other day of his wife recording him still. He still runs and gets in shape just in case the call comes.
Right.
And there's a lot of talking about quarterbacks. We're going to get to that.
I mean, shoot, if Cam Newton can come back, RG3 can too.
I'm just saying, I think the same way, Chris. It's just always being ready. All right, before we go, I want to get to a question before we get to our next topic from Jamel Cutler, since we mentioned the Wizards and, again, fans in DC. I don't know if you saw Mad Dog went on this whole rant on ESPN about the Wizards not even getting 36 wins, this season. It was tough. But he wants to know, how do you feel about number 6 on the Wizards? You know who he's talking about?
No, who that?
He's a Knicks fan. So, Knicks fans feel away about this guy, Kristaps Porzingis. He wants to know.
I like Porzingis, but he's just, sometimes he's great, and the other times he's like, you don't even know he's on the team. But I think he's pretty good, if he could stay healthy.
Yeah.
When he's doing good, you can count on him for like 28 and 10.
Yeah.
But when he's not available, you can't count on him.
Yeah, and that's what's needed. And, speaking of the Wizards, I don't know if you saw, there was a little bit of beef happening between Kyle Kuzma and Spencer Dinwiddie. Did you catch on to any of that, Chris?
No, I haven't been watching as much as I should.
Yeah. Well, it's good. You stay out of the drama and nonsense.
If they fight, I like a good fight.
So you were more watching Rudy Gobert, baby, throwing punches at teammates, potentially.
Yeah. Sometimes
and,
that happens.
I was going to say, because with the Commanders, if we go back, what was it? Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, remember, had a heated.
What's one of these when you do this? It's about to be a fight.
Don't put your fingers in anybody's face or on them. And, let's talk about that, because as an athlete in the locker room, and you've known this from a professional level to collegiate level to obviously high school and so on, how are you able to handle the best of your emotions, but I guess while also trying to bring out the best in somebody else, right? Because being a leader, probably you do try to get on people, right? When maybe they made a mistake, or, what are your thoughts on that?
I like it, especially if you're a player that plays well. People will respect you when you have something to say.
Yeah.
And being that we're football players and really aggressive, sometimes things do get physical, but hopefully you have enough self-composure to not let it get to where you guys are throwing blows and trying to hurt each other. But sometimes you got to jack a teammate up, or you got to raise your voice up to a teammate. But you're doing it out of love, and hopefully that teammate takes that out of love and don't be like, "Hey, I'm about to fight you." I see you in the locker room. When I see you outside the locker room, most of the time it doesn't get to that, because guys understand what it is. Hey, we're just trying to win.
Yeah, that's what it is. At the end of the day, you just want to win. For you, were you ever in any heated conversations? I'm sure you didn't throw no punches or anything.
I didn't throw any punches, but I remember one of my most heated moments was against the Giants. Me and Joe Barry had got into it really bad on the sideline, because in practice, we knew that if the Giants gained 10 or more yards in the red zone, they would line up in a hurry-up offense and run the ball.
Yeah.
And they were on the 3-yard line, and we called a cover 2.
Yeah.
With nobody blitzing in the middle, and they walked the ball into the red zone. So I came off the field like, bro, we talked about this in practice. Why you ain't just send an all-out blitz? At least we could have a chance against the run. So, we went at it, because it's like, bro, we talked about this in practice. Why didn't we execute this in the game? That was my biggest, big argument with the coach on the sideline, but not really too much with the players and stuff. I was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I just like I said, it happens. I mean, if you've played any sport, it happens, and this is the thrill of the game. You're hoping, like you said, it motivates. You never want to see anybody put their hands on each other.
Right.
But again, I know that sometimes, but I will say men usually do pretty well, because I'm like after that, it's like, oh, it's cool. We brothers.
Right.
Because then, they'll try to bury the hatchet, because you also don't
brothers always have fights, but they find a way to put it behind them. I think those guys are probably the closest guys. I mean, they've been teammates at Alabama before they even came here.
Right.
So that's probably not their first argument,
Right. And it's maybe we've seen it to that level.
To the fans, they say, hey, what the hell is going on? But to them, I was like, hey, we've been here and done this before, so it's whatever. We'll be straight. We'll talk it out.
We're cool. And that's what I think. And that's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, too, it's about winning. Talking about winning, you mentioned the Giants.
They both the highest paid players at their position, so they straight.
Right. Deron just got his bag.
That's right.
Jonathan Allen had got his bag. So they
Right.
both good. They're both happy.
Yeah,
And
they both
both
straight.
well-deserved bags. Talking about well-deserved bags, you mentioned the Giants and the quarterback. We want to talk quarterbacks with you. Quarterback that got his bag, Daniel Jones. Did you feel like that was the right move? Looking at the year that the Giants obviously came off of, I don't know if anybody had high expectations.
I don't mind, any player getting paid, but it seems so weird that a guy like Daniel Jones could get a long-term extension, and then we're still here talking about Lamar Jackson without a long-term deal, and he has an MVP under his belt. And then you look at a guy like Deshaun Watson gets a record deal after being out of the league for a year with all these sexual allegations, even though they were allegations. He came back with a record deal for the most guaranteed money out of the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Now you turn around and look at Lamar. Lamar never been in trouble.
Not at all.
Why isn't it? At least he should get what Deshaun Watson got. At least.
Right. At least. Yeah. And I think that's what fans are talking about, and obviously, let's go there. We're talking about quarterbacks. Like you said, Lamar is still waiting to get paid. We saw some stuff happening in Baltimore, but it wasn't with him. Of course, it was with Odell Beckham Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Would get 15 guaranteed, but can be up to $18 million. And obviously, I don't think it was a surprise that Baltimore signed a wide receiver. They've obviously had some trouble in that position, right? They're looking for a guy that can go over 1,000 yards, that can contribute to this offense. When you look at probably the best offensive weapon that they've had consistently, it's probably been Mark Andrews, right, at that tight end position. But you need more. Mark Andrews can only do some. Obviously, injuries hurt them too.
Correct.
But Odell been there. Look, I don't know if you saw the video of them in the club. Lamar looked like, I feel like he's like, Lamar is me, Chris. I can't go out anymore. I'm tired after a long day. Like Lamar doesn't look like I'm here, but like, when is this over? Get me out. But it was great to see him connecting. Obviously, they had conversations. But going back to Baltimore, and if they can pay him, Eric DaCosta actually just said that he communicated with Jackson since Jackson had made that trade request. Of course, Lamar put out there on social media that he had asked to get traded earlier in March. He said, we only think of Lamar as the quarterback of this team. We're hopeful to get a deal done. It's been, as you know, a very long process. So all that to say, do you think he ends up back in Baltimore? Or do you think we'll eventually just hear another team potentially say, you know what, Lamar is our guy?
I'm not sure, because if I'm Lamar, I'm like, bro, I've been your whole team ever since you guys drafted me.
Yeah.
Like, why am I waiting for a contract? Like, why would you even ask me to prove it one more year? Like, I've already won an MVP, and I'm looking at my peers get paid before me who haven't even played out their contracts. And I've won an MVP, so I need to get paid accordingly. And I need to get paid right now, long term. I don't want to have a 1 year prove it deal. Things could happen, especially when you play the way like Lamar plays. He's bound to get injured at some point.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened. I think the last 2 years, he's missed probably like 4 or 5 games every year. So when teams make that kind of investment into a player, they want that player to be available 16, 17 games out of the season. But it's hard to do that when he runs as much as he runs. You're going to get hurt. You're going to twist the ankle at some point. Yeah. And that's kind of like what happened. But at the end of the day, he's been available. And when he is available, he's definitely a top 5 quarterback in this league. So he needs to get paid accordingly.
Yeah. And
he's only 26 years old.
26. And we're looking at someone like Hendon Hooker, right? Who's 25. And you're thinking about, look at that, coming out the draft. But all that to say, as we talk about Lamar and, Ben Roethlisberger also recently had a quote that came out that basically said, Lamar isn't going to be a guy that picks you apart in the pocket. Now, I personally think Lamar has gotten better.
But he does, though. When he's on, like he could have games where he throw for 400 yards.
I was going to say, because he is a passer too, and he moves. Right. And this as someone who's played with RG3.
Those are the hardest quarterbacks to guard.
Yeah.
Guys that can run, because now it gives the advantage to the offense because they pick up an extra blocker. Like normally the quarterback hands the ball off to the running back. So now it's 11 on 11.
Right.
But it's actually 11 on 10 because the quarterback is out of the equation.
Right.
But when you have a quarterback that can run the ball, it makes it 11 on 11. And that quarterback make one person miss and it's over.
Yeah, and he's made people miss. Lamar,
not many quarterbacks can do that except for Lamar.
Like he's bred different. He's just, that's why we like watching him. That's why he's Action Jackson, and he's really become must-watch TV. And as I said, an all-around guy, hasn't been in trouble. And I think all of us just want to see him get paid because it's
just pay the man. Pay the man.
Pay the man. It's not that hard, right? He's done what needs to be done. We saw a former Baltimore quarterback actually get signed today to the Patriots, and that was quarterback Trace McSorley. So again, it seems like every quarterback.
Oh, yeah, we are Penn State. Penn State guy.
And since we're talking about college, let's go to your story. I want to go to your story. You went actually undrafted out of Hampton University. Grew up though in Windsor, Connecticut, right, Chris?
Yes.
Let's first talk about that. So finding a love of football. Connecticut's a place I feel like we don't get to hear enough. Like I feel like people only know like ESPN's there and like NBC
and
Sport.
UConn basketball.
And UConn basketball, men and women. Congratulations to UConn, by the way. And speaking of UConn, what was up with the men's game? Why didn't we get as much action, Chris, as the women's game? We wanted a little bit more fight, I think, from San Diego State.
And we've been kicking ass the whole time, so they don't want to watch that. They knew UConn was going to blow them out.
This wasn't a fair match, but obviously, I mean, now a blue blood in UConn. What a season they had, and just
that's right.
What a legacy that they've built at UConn. But for you, growing up in Windsor, what was it like for you, and how did you first find a love of football?
Well, when I was young, I was 6 feet at 10 years old, so
wow.
I was really big, and
to say the least.
I was 6 foot 10 years old, but I was like 235 pounds, and I could never play little league football because there was always a weight limit, and I was so far over the weight limit. Like there was an A team, a B team, and a C team. Right. I was a C team age limit, but I was over the weight limit for the A team, which was the older kids. So I could never play. So that's how I got into basketball. I played basketball, and I was really good. I mean, if you can only imagine, I was 6 feet at 10, so I was like Shaquille O'Neal as a kid.
The Shaquille O'Neal 10-year-old, right?
Yep. And then I played basketball my whole high school career, and I was really good.
Yeah.
But I was a 6 foot power forward. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to go to a Division I college as a 6 foot power forward,
Right.
So my junior year, going into my junior year, I only played my junior and senior year. I was walking in the hallway, and my good friend John Manning was like, "Yo, why don't you come to spring ball and just try it out?" I was like, "All right, I ain't doing nothing today. I'll try it out." So I went to spring practice and I tried football, and I was pretty good at it. And after 1 year of playing, I wound up getting looks from all these Big Ten schools, and I was like, "Well, I guess football is going to be the way." And so my junior and senior year, I played against a couple of guys. One by the name ASAP Swap. He was like the number one fullback running back in the state, and he got a full scholarship to Notre Dame.
Okay.
And then we also had Corey Sheets that was from Bloomfield, and they were top running backs, and they were getting recruited from like really big schools. And when they sent their tapes out, the colleges was like, "Well, who was that on Windsor?" So that's how I got found. And then I got invited to the Nike elite camp, and that was at Penn State. So I went there and I performed well, and all the Penn State coaches saw me. That's pretty much how I got my scholarship.
That is pretty cool. I mean, that is obviously pretty cool. And then you get to college, and now you're not the biggest guy, right? Because there's other big guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, that was my first time getting dominated. I always tell people this story because learning how to play football was a big adjustment for me. So when I went to Penn State, that was my first time ever being dominated. I wasn't used to it because I was always the biggest and fastest kid ever.
Right.
And I went there, and it was this one practice. My coach was like, "You know what? I can't keep babying you. I'm going to make you stay out there and just gut it out." So it was like a 12-play drive, and Coach Johnson would not take me out. And I was so tired. It was this older kid. His name was Rich Ornberger. He pancaked me so bad. Like he pancaked me 10 yards down the field. My helmet fell off. My butt pad came out. I was so embarrassed. I'm like, "Mom, I'm coming home. I don't think football is for me." And then something clicked. The light bulb, like the light bulb just clicked for me. And I started getting good. I'm like, I'm never going to allow that to happen to me again. Yeah. And then I got good after that moment.
It just takes one time, right? One time to get embarrassed. You don't ever want to have that feeling again.
Because you know that you have to watch that play
over
in front of all your peers.
Yeah.
So that's like the most embarrassing thing. Like what? He just pancaked me like that. It was like he took me 10 yards down the field, dumped me. My helmet came off. My butt pad was on the field. I was like, "Oh my God, what is this?"
But sometimes you need that like wake up call, right? Because again, you go from playing high school, and obviously the high school level is different, but you were still new to the sport as you described, as you were a basketball guy. But now again, you have more guys that are your size, more guys that are around your weight, and competing for the spot, right? I mean,
right.
it's not guaranteed. And
It's
everybody
not.
wants their playing time. Like
It's
you ain't
not.
gonna cut into there. And I think
Right,
you
especially out
learn,
of Penn State. Like you had to get,
especially right.
like
That's
there
a little,
was no getting out of conditioning. There was no not practicing. Like you had to go to
yeah.
work every day if you
Wow.
wanted to play.
If you wanted to play like that, you had to go to work every day. And obviously that was a good mindset, I'm sure, for you
Oh,
leading
definitely.
to the NFL because you went undrafted, right? Right,
Yep.
Chris?
hmm
And
I,
talk
I
about
left.
that
I went
experience.
to I went to Penn State for 3 years, and then I went to Hampton for a semester,
Yeah.
and I was Black College All-American there.
Yeah.
So
And
I thought,
and I was just talking about, Black College All-American, which shout out to you and congrats to you. What do you think about all this chatter now about HBCUs and football? A lot of it stemming from obviously what Deion Sanders was able to do at Jackson State University. I know he's now at Colorado, and then Wyatt Reed, I guess, was trying to do it Bethune-Cookman before that didn't work out. But lots of good, and then now we have an HBCU Go TV channel. I mean, there's lots happening around HBCU sports. I mean, and for you with
yeah,
your time,
I
at
love it.
Hampton,
I love it. I'm glad I was able to have the experience at Hampton of being at an HBCU. And I'm glad that
yeah,
Deion brought a lot of attention to the HBCUs. But we just need funding because it was a struggle for me coming
okay,
from Penn State and then going to Hampton because I was used to a certain level of things or how things were ran. And it
right,
was just so different because at Penn State you have your own football building for a study hall, your own whole locker room, like you have your own football fields,
yeah,
indoor facility. And when you come to Hampton, it's almost like being at high school again because they don't have funding.
right,
And Hampton was in a lot better shape than a lot of other HBCUs who really are like in bad shape.
yeah,
But I think Deion brought light to the situation of how HBCUs really are. It's just tough. Like guys don't have practice equipment. Their practice
yeah,
facilities aren't the best. Even their locker rooms aren't the greatest at all
right.
at all places. So hopefully they can find more funding because they need it a lot. They need it bad.
Yeah. And I think, just leading off of that too, something about HBCUs and, what's needed, how can we help them? The funding obviously is a piece, but then also I think making sure these guys get more looks to be able to go to the National Football League. Every year
Correct.
in the draft that's talked about, how many guys are going to get selected, if any, out of HBCUs or who's going to have the journey like you, to go undrafted and play. And obviously we've seen some great players. We have Hall of Famers, right? That came out of HBCUs.
Yeah, it's a lot of HBCU Hall of Famers.
Yeah. And so the talent is there,
but
how
it
to
was definitely a struggle. I was so pissed because I thought I was going to get drafted in the second or third round. And then I had like a little draft party at my house.
Yeah.
So I had all the friends and family waiting for me to get called, and no one ever called. I cried so bad.
Oh,
that's tough. I was like, I left school as a junior thinking I'm going to get drafted and didn't get drafted. So I'm like, what am I about to do?
Right. You just didn't know. So looking back, would you change, knowing what you know now, would you have stayed an extra year, Chris, looking back?
No, I'm proud of my journey because I do feel like being that I was undrafted, it made me have to prove every day that, hey, I belong in this league. And maybe if I was drafted in the first, second round, maybe I would have had like an attitude like, hey, well, I'm a first rounder, so I only got to do as much,
Right.
But being an undrafted guy, you had to beat somebody out. You had to come into camp in shape. You saw a lot, like in my time during the league, like you could see some first rounders or some people who were drafted, they come to camp out of shape. And they're like, well, you know what? I worked myself into shape during camp. But as an undrafted guy, you didn't have that. Yeah, you didn't have that chance to do that. Like you had to come in shape and perform each and every day. And every time you got an opportunity to play, you had to make sure that you knew your assignment and you didn't make mental mistakes, because that's the best way to get cut. If you don't know your plays, they'll get rid of you the next day.
And that's what it is. Football can be brutal like that. I mean, if you really know the game, some guys have stayed on the practice squad. Some guys have been, in and out of teams. Like it's tough.
I've seen guys on 6-7 different teams in 1 year.
Look at that. And having to move and relocate. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. And those are the stories that people obviously don't know as much. People obviously focus on Sundays, Thursdays and Monday nights. But there's so many stories out there that I think does need to be told, especially for the younger generation, because every kid, wants a professional athlete. They see the glamorous side of it. They don't really see all the work that needs to go into it. But that's real. And,
not even that. And more importantly, is like, people think that all the guys on the NFL team are all millionaires. There's probably only 6 to 8 guys on the team that's actual millionaires. Most of the guys on the team are minimum league salary. And
Yeah.
then when they get cut, they just get cut. It's not like they get what they were supposed to have under their contract. You get cut and don't get paid nothing. So it's very unfortunate. It sucks that we don't have guaranteed contracts, especially with the amount of injuries that we suffer.
Yeah,
from.
football.
You know, we could have a bad coach. He could get fired and get all his money.
Yeah.
And then we could play well, and the coach don't like us, and we get cut, and they don't give us nothing. It's crazy.
It's brutal. And, going back to that, I think that takes me back to the Lamar angle, where what Lamar is trying to do, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, he's trying to do it himself, not go the typical agent route, but like do it himself. Obviously, his mom's part of his team. I believe he has like an advisor or somebody else helping him. But let's say Lamar is able to get this done himself. Do you feel like this will set a new precedent, for players to begin to want to do their own contract negotiations?
No doubt about it. I mean, I'm fine with Lamar doing it. Who's the offensive tackle who keep doing it? He's his own agent. I'm drawing a blank. The left tackle for Houston. What was his name? He had the draft day when Larry Tunsil, is that his name? I think.
Okay. So he was doing his own contracts.
He's his own contract. This is like the second or third time that he's renegotiated his own contract. He's like the highest paid left tackle in the league. So if you can do it, then do it. You don't really need an agent, especially when you're a top player. The numbers are what they are. It should be whatever. If like Lamar, he's won an MVP. So whatever the player got paid the highest at his position, his numbers should be higher than that. You don't need an agent to tell you that.
That's true. You don't. You know your value. You know your worth. And
why do you need an agent to tell you that you should have a contract bigger than Deshaun Jackson?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Deshaun Watson.
Right. And I think that's what it goes back to. But again, that's why all eyes are on Lamar. Now, there's still a long timetable. But I'm glad you said that because, like you said, everybody assumes because we hear the contract numbers, of some guys, but that's not the reality for all guys. Talking about reality. So you come out of Hampton. We talk about the journey from an HBCU. And I got to ask you then, what's the real HU, Chris?
Hampton, baby. It ain't Howard. Plus, we be whooping their ass anyway. So,
I had to ask you that one.
I know, especially being in DC.
especially being in DC. You might get some mean tweets later, but it's okay. You're still
it's
very.
All love. It's all love.
But you spent time with the Denver Broncos and Miami Dolphins in your first 2 seasons in the league. But then I want to talk about your break, which came with the then, and at the time, the team, of course, was the then Washington Redskins. I'll talk about your journey in Washington. This is where you spent the longest amount of time working your way up to become a full-time starter eventually for this Washington franchise.
And MVP of the 2016 defense.
There you go. Look, name it.
That's right.
Well, let's talk about your time in Washington, which made it so special for you in your NFL playing career. So, what was it that clicked in Washington for you, Chris?
Well, I felt like I should have played my first 2 years.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, they just never allowed me to play. I always was on the active roster, but they never would let me would make me activated on game day.
And you're talking about the Dolphins and Broncos, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
I played in, I believe, 1 game as a Denver Bronco, and I played in like 2 games as a Miami Dolphin.
Yeah.
And then I got to Washington, and I was on practice squad pretty much that whole first year. And then I finally got a chance to be the backup to Barry Cofield. And that's how I kind of got my foot in the door. Yeah. But, like, I always knew I could play. I just needed an opportunity. I just needed the coaches to let me get out there and play.
Right.
And once they started letting me play, they was like, yo, who is this guy? He always making plays. I'm like, dog, I've been told y'all this. Like, put me in the damn game.
I can show you if you gave me an opportunity and a chance. And, as you look back over your time in Washington, do you have any favorite memories?
My favorite memories was, RG3 rookie year. That's when I really started to play a lot. And when I was really like a first-time starter. And then in like 2016, is when I had my best season. I won MVP of the defense. And everything like really clicked. But even that year, for some odd reason, the coaches wouldn't trust me. I don't know if because I was like an undrafted free agent, so they always looked at me as an undrafted guy. Because the year that I shined, that's the year that I had recruited Terrence Knighton to come and play.
Yeah.
And I was actually playing nose, but I knew I wanted to play left defensive end because I played all throughout the defensive line. So I had my best friend there, and I didn't bring him there so I could be his backup. I brought him so I could play with him,
Right.
And during that time, they had signed Stephen Paya and paid him a lot of money.
Yeah.
So they brought him in and just marked him in as a starter. I'm like, yo, there's no way this guy is starting in front of me. So they kind of made me and him battle it out all through camp, and I outright beat him. Like it wasn't even close. If you look at all the preseason games, you look at the practices, it was like people knew I was way better than Stephen Paya. But for some reason, they still started him at the beginning of the year. Like if you look at the year I won the MVP, I didn't start week 1. I didn't wind up starting until like week 5 or week 6 when we played the Philadelphia Eagles. I had went to Coach Gruden. I said, Gruden, you told us in our team meeting that it is your job and your responsibility to make sure that the best 11 are on that field at the same time. And if you want the best 11 on that field, I should be one of the best 11 on your defense. So that was my first. So that was my first game starting that year, and I wound up having my first 2 games sack. I wound up having my first 2 sack game of the season against the Philadelphia Eagles. I was kicking their ass.
And look, that's what Washington fans are hoping this team does this year. They're not excited to see how far the Eagles got last year, of course, coming this short, in the Super Bowl, going fast forwarding to this now Commanders team, which I'm not sure if you've gotten used to, and we're looking at their needs, right? And we know the NFL draft is coming up. From you being a football mind, a football fan, and looking at this team, both defense and offense, Chris, some of the positions you already talked about quarterback. So I don't know if that means you believe in Sam Howell, if you're thinking they should be looking more, because now they got Eric Bieniemy right in the offensive coordinator position. So I think you need to get him a weapon. So do you look at the draft? And the other need, some would say, are probably cornerback, right? Linebackers, safety, any other positions that you think Washington needs to look at?
I think right now we need to solidify our left tackle position. That's the most important position outside of the quarterback.
Yeah.
Is the guy that protects his blind side. So if we just, we had the best left tackle in the game in Trent Williams, and we let him go. We haven't found a replacement.
That's a sore spot. That's a sore spot, Chris, for many.
Right. Trent is by far the best left tackle in this league, and we had him. And we had Brandon Sheriff too. We had 2 really good cornerstones on the offensive line. We let them both go for nothing.
Yeah, the offensive line was tested this year. So like you said, that's a position that obviously does need to get taken care of. And, we want Washington to be in the postseason. You have all these talented, great guys. You look at some of the signings that they have, offensive tackle Andrew Wiley, offensive guard Nick Gates, obviously quarterback Jacoby Brissett. And then cornerback Danny Johnson, right, getting signed as a free agent.
I like Brissett, though. He's good. He's a safe quarterback. I like him.
He's a good backup. I think, right. He's a veteran. He's a big guy, in the pockets. I thought it was a safe move by Washington.
But he's also more proven than the quarterback that we have right now. Will they go with him? I'm not sure.
Yeah. We haven't seen a lot of him.
Because he doesn't have experience. But at least Jacoby has experience. So I would like to see us start the season off with him. And if he struggles, then we could bring Sam in. Yeah. Or at least Sam can have someone to look up to and see how it's supposed to be done. Like this guy has learned from Tom Brady. Like what other best quarterback can you learn from?
Yeah,
he does well. He just hasn't had a team like really back him and say, "Hey, you're our guy." He hasn't had that yet. It's interesting to see how Jacoby does if he has a team support. I mean, he kind of reminds me of like a Geno Smith. Like Geno Smith never really had someone like back him, and last year was the first time when a team and organization like put everything behind him. Like, hey, this is our guy. And look how well he's played when he was given the opportunity.
They tried to write him off. He ain't right back, right, Chris? And I mean, look at the story now that Geno Smith has had. And I love that. I'm like you. I think a lot of people are high on Tim Howell, but I haven't seen enough tape. I just haven't. Right. So I can't get high on somebody that I haven't seen enough of. I need to see more of how you play. I'm not going to get excited from preseason games, and I'm not going to get excited from the last game of the season. Now, he might prove me wrong and be a hell of a quarterback, but I'm also like you. I think take time to learn, be nurtured. Not everybody's going to have a crazy thing like Brock Purdy and just come out the gate, being able to sling it across the football field. But Washington
that's more of a credit to Shanahan's offense.
Yeah, we do have to give credit. We do have to give credit where it's due. And I completely agree with you. And, that was a team I think that many people actually had put in their Super Bowl, predictions last year. And then, then quarterback goes down, then you're like, oh my gosh. But then, they probably had the best situation happen because who would have thought all of a sudden, this happens for San Francisco.
Man, they lost four quarterbacks in
isn't that
playoffs.
Crazy?
That was crazy.
That's just like unheard of. But I'm sure teams this year even are just thinking about, like having contingency plans, knowing the guys on your field. And as we talk about injuries, they happen. I want to talk about you because earlier this year, Chris, you actually made headlines because you had your own personal health scare, right? I know this was obviously after football, and thank gosh, you're here talking with me today, but you actually recovered from a serious life-threatening stroke. I know this was something that you document on social media, your recovery aspect. I know your mom had to media about it. So kind of take us through, Chris, what happened, because you're obviously still a young guy. I can still consider you young.
Yeah, I'm 35.
That's young.
That's what I was saying when I had the stroke. When the ambulance came, I'm like, yo, I'm 35. How am I having a stroke? Like, I'm 35. How am I having a stroke?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't wrap my head around that I was 35 years old and I was experiencing a stroke. I didn't even know I was having a stroke when I had it. So I'll tell you what happened. So I was staying in the house. I was at my friend's house, and I was drinking some lemonade, and then my left arm just like went kind of numb, but I didn't put two and two together. Nothing was like, hey, you're having a stroke. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I just know my left arm wasn't feeling right. So I knocked over the lemonade and I wound up slipping on the juice. So I slept and I was on the couch.
Wow.
But I had to pee really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember trying to like get myself up off the floor so I could go pee.
Yeah.
But I couldn't use my left arm to raise myself up. So my friend came home and she was like, I said, yo, can you help me go to the bathroom? And she was like, I can't get you up off the ground. I'm going to call 911 because I can't lift you up. I was like, yo, I just got to pee. So she calls 911 and they're like, tell him to look at you and smile. And when I smiled, my left side of my face didn't move. So they said he's having a stroke. So that's when the ambulance came. And thank God she lived 2 minutes away from the hospital. So as soon as the ambulance came, I'm like, yo, I'm 35. I'm having a stroke. There's no way. Like, what are you talking about? I can hear you. I was very cognitive.
Yeah.
So they brought me to the hospital, and then I must have got knocked out at the hospital. They must have gave me some anesthesia because they did a surgery. They went through my groin. They went through my groin and cut the blood clot in my brain.
Wow.
But thank God I was able to get help really fast.
Yeah.
I don't really have any lingering issues as far as recovering from my stroke. You know, I'm still like on my left side it's still numb. But I could still function. Like I could do everything I could do before the stroke. The only thing that I can't do is functional stuff. Like if I had to button up a dress shirt, it's hard for me to use my left hand to do that. But,
wow. No, but you sharing that, I mean, I think, and like you said, when you're young, sometimes we think we're invincible, Chris, right? When you're young, you're like, oh, nothing's going to happen to me till I'm older. That's like an old folks thing, but it can happen to anyone. And like you think you're in the right place, because like your friend didn't live far from the hospital, and thank God she got home when she did as well to help you.
Because if she didn't come home, I would have died because I didn't know I was having a stroke.
Yeah, and nobody's like know the warning signs. Like you said, when
I didn't know it was even something wrong with me. I just knew my arm wasn't feeling good, but nothing was like, hey, you need to go to a hospital. I just thought my arm wasn't feeling well.
Wow. And looking back,
even when she called, I said, yo, don't call the ambulance. Like, I'm straight. I just got to pee. Like, I'm telling her not to call. And then when she called, the lady said, tell him to smile. And when I smiled, my left side didn't move. And it was like, yo, he's having a stroke.
Wow. I mean, just wow. And I'm glad you shared that because one, I hope folks get educated because that's not something you learn, right? Like you're not usually taught, the signs, when somebody's having a stroke. And I love the quote that you gave, when all this happened. It said, tell your loved ones you love them. My life almost ended 2 days ago. I can't believe I had a stroke, but God not done with me yet. I thought that was such a powerful testimony, Chris. He's not done with you. That's why we're here talking on the show. That's why you're able to share this story. And I'm so excited to continue to see the Swaggy story, play out. So Chris, what keeps you busy nowadays?
I'm just recovering. Like
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry if I took you back to a hard moment, Chris.
No, it's all right.
We're just glad you're here. I mean, honestly, we're just glad you're here because you are a
Yeah,
testimony.
I'm definitely happy to be here. It's just weird, you know.
Yeah.
It's just I'm happy to be here.
And we're so glad to have you. And obviously, you were meant to be here. That's why you're still here, Chris. And I want you to know that you were meant to be here. And you're
Yep.
inspiring so many others. Like me, I mean, honestly, I didn't until you said that, I wouldn't even have known the signs of a stroke. Because like I said, no one
Right.
teaches you that. And like you said, if
Right.
you go numb, most people would just think, oh, something, my body's just acting weird. And that's what I'm saying. You're telling this story is so important because there's gonna be somebody out there, people out there, Chris, that needed to hear that.
Correct.
No, they're not invincible. So I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you being vulnerable. I know it's not easy. We're taught our whole
Yeah, like
lives to be strong.
I never really talk about it, you know, so that's why I kind of got emotional with it. But
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I
it's definitely
appreciate
a
you sharing.
blessing. You know, thank God every day that, you know, it could have been worse. You
Yeah.
know, because I've seen so many people who have strokes and they can't walk, they can't talk, they can't do anything. I'm
Wow.
able to pretty much live my normal life. You
That's
know, so
amazing.
you know, I always say that I'm here for a reason. You know,
Here
God
for
has a purpose for me to be here and to share my story with other people, not only
Yeah.
just about my football story, but just my whole journey in life. And
Yeah.
I'm here and I'm going to keep fighting.
I love that. And you're going to keep fighting. And, let me just ask you, Chris, before I let you go, when you fight, how long were you in the hospital?
About a month.
And so what was it like when you finally got out the hospital and just knew you were going home and that like things were going to be okay for you?
You know, I was so frustrated being in the hospital. It got a little tough,
Yeah.
but one of the bright spots was my kids that came to see me.
Oh.
So when I got to see my kids, it helped me recover a lot better.
Yeah, because you were there for them. They needed their dad.
Yep.
That's so
Yeah, so
special.
that helped me out because, you know, it's like the basic things in life that you take for granted.
Yeah.
I was still able to do it, but I was getting frustrated because like, I know I can walk, I know I can talk, and it's like they treat me like an old man, like I can't walk and talk, like I can do it, like just let me do it. And like
Right.
every day I kept getting better and better. But
Yeah.
you kind of get into like a dark spot. But when I saw my kids, it kind of
Oh,
just regenerated me. You know, I
yeah.
got regenerated. You know, and that helped me like push through and get through the rehab.
Right. Right. They were like that bright light, right? That source
Yeah.
of strength that comes. Those are yours. Those are your babies. And they were there
Yep.
for their dad. That's so
Yep.
special.
Yeah, that made me feel good when I saw my babies and they came and rugged and ran and gave me a hug. You know,
Aww.
that brightened up my day.
And they were just glad to see Pops. Again, Chris, I'm just so thankful. And I don't think anything happens for a mistake. I think we were brought together for a reason. I'm so glad that you shared your testimony, your story on this show. And I'm excited to keep connected, Chris. I've been looking forward to
Most
your
definitely.
tweets, to your story. A pleasure to meet you again.
Pleasure to see you
Again, next
again,
time I had
Kelsey.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I so appreciate your time. I'm going to let you get back to your family again, y'all. You just heard from Swaggy, AKA Chris Baker, former NFL player, and a true testimony. Truly appreciate his time on the show. We'll be back next week, you all, for more great stories on Listening with KNN. I truly am so thankful for all of you all that tuned into this show, that tuned in earlier. Cannot do without you all. And of course, also check out audio versions of this show. But this is a real show. So always bring your thoughts, your comments. We have the real conversations that need to be had. So until then, especially in the DMV, enjoy this beautiful, warm weather. If you're still in sports and if you're in the DC area, I also invite you. I'm about to hop on a Washington Association of Black Journalists Twitter Spaces chat. We're going to talk about the double standards that exist in sports. Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, and all of that controversy that ensued. But I want to thank my team, as always, for being on, being amazing, and helping out. A special shout out to everybody that helped me get my shows together. Again, my intern team is absolutely amazing, and I'm absolutely thankful for them. So until then, enjoy the sports world, smile, and please don't take your fantasy sports too seriously because there's always another play. Bye, guys. Have a great one.
Follow Kelsey on social media at The Real K Nelson. Catch episodes of Listen In with KNN on YouTube, on air at AM 1340 and 96.9 FM, Fox Sports Radio, on Facebook and Twitter, and online at KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Thank you for watching this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN.
Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio now offers official Kelsey Nicole Nelson apparel in a variety of styles for men and women. Fashionable shirts, leggings, hats, jackets, and more. Order now and get 15% off and free shipping. Just enter promo code KNN. Get your Listen In with KNN wearables today. And check out Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio with Kelsey Nicole Nelson.